the goal is that you're making meaningful change in your life. If you're so busy that you don't have time to watch the video, how else can I support you? And so sometimes the only time they can consume the course material is when they're, for example, like on a walk or in the car, and those are not times that are conducive to a video. And it's like, okay, let's add the podcast feed.
Welcome back to another case study episode. Today, we have the one, the only Adrienne Dorison back to share with it. I guess she's not back, but on the show. Maybe that was just insight of the future of like, you're going to come back. But Adrienne's on today to talk
I'll
with
come
us.
back.
Yeah, you could come back. She's here to talk with us all about using private podcasts in her courses and certifications. You might know her from Run Like Clockwork, which I know has been running for a while now. And actually using Hello Audio was an early adopter in some of the programs for that, which is exciting. And she also has a new endeavor, the personal brand and how to CEO. So we're excited to talk to you about using it in courses. Now, guys, this is not going to be a like, here's how to make a bajillion dollars, or like, here's the unique, crazy way we're using this podcast. You're going to be like, okay, cool, put it in a course, which Nora and Lindsay have been talking about since the beginning of time. But we do have Adrienne, like she's an expert in efficiency, the Six Sigma, I remember from back in the day, like she knows all this stuff. And so the fact that she chose to use private podcasts in her courses and her certification programs, I think speaks volumes to the power of what it can bring to your program. So we're going to kind of lean into that in this episode today. Adrienne, we're so excited to chat with you.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I'll come back anytime. So I'll be looking for my invitation.
Awesome. I know I like kind of, introduced you a little bit, but why don't you give everyone a brief background about your business and like the business structure and model, and then we'll dive into private pods.
Okay, cool. So I am the CEO, co-founder of Run Like Clockwork. So we have a book. It's called Clockwork. It's written by my business partner, Mike Michalowicz. If you've ever heard of Profit First, Clockwork, Pumpkin Plan, all of that. So he's the author, and then I run the Run Like Clockwork company. We have been delivering courses since, like, digital programs that also have some level of support since our inception, which the book launched in 2017. So we've had Hello Audio since day one of that. Whenever we started, we were wanting to use
2019,
that.
2020. Yeah.
So we had 2019, or like whenever you started, we started like offering it in the programming, right? So we've had a program that delivers direct to our customer for years. It was called the Clockwork Accelerator. That program was like a year-long journey for people to get their business fully clockworked. And I use clockworked as like a verb, but really for small business owners to design a business that can run itself with better systems, better team, so that they, as the business owner, aren't effectively like the linchpin and everything depends on them. So that's been running for, like I said, for 6-7 years now. We actually sunsetted that program last year as we transitioned into a certification model. So now we have a certification program where people can certify to use our methodology with their clients. So people have been asking for this since day one of launching the book, but I was never quite ready. And now I finally felt ready as a business and a team. And so people can get certified to now clockwork their clients. So now we have kind of like a train the trainer model. We're still delivering our accelerator program until those contracts end. So we still show up for anyone who enrolled, in a 12-month contract, and that will start to slowly disappear later this year. So that's kind of like where we're at now.
Sweet. I know you've been around, we've been in each other's worlds for a while now. I can't believe Clockwork was written in 2017. That's bananas to me. I'm curious when you're like, oh, this makes sense that this private podcast thing works for courses, and like what your kind of first thoughts about it and why you kind of were like, this totally makes sense.
Yeah. So I think we've been in each other's worlds, like you said, probably since 2015. And so I knew you, I knew the work that you were doing, and I trusted you. And so I think in terms of being an early adopter, I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's really cool. And maybe it will work for a lot of our content. And maybe there is some content that does need to be more visual. But when I really thought about most of the content, most of it could be listened to by audio. And I've also always been a podcaster kind of in my business. Like I've always enjoyed podcasting. I've always listened to podcasts and it made a lot of sense because it felt like just another way or another avenue for people to consume the content that we wanted them to consume in order to make it through the program. Right. And so like I don't sit around watching things on YouTube, but I do take a lot of walks and listen to podcasts. And so I'm sure there's people that consume course or want to consume courses in that same way, but we're not necessarily giving them that option. Like, why would we not? So that was my thought process. Like, why would we not give them that option when we absolutely know that that's a big preference for a lot of people? So when you came out with Hello Audio, I was like, yeah, we want that, right? And we just immediately added it into our courses and people love it. Like people love that the ease of it, the simplicity of it, the efficiency of it, because our business owners, like when we're working with clients, like their number one objection is I'm too busy to do this, which is the thing that we help them solve. But if they're too busy to do the work to help them solve the busyness, then I can't help them. Right. And so it was really aligned for us to offer efficient ways for them to consume the content, even just to get some small wins, while they're washing the dishes or going on a walk or commuting to and from work or like all the things that they're already doing while they're in the shower. I have a speaker in my shower. I don't know if that's weird, but like I listen to podcasts or music or whatever all the time in the shower because that's probably something wrong with me. My brain can't stop. But all that to say, it's a good use of people's time. If they're like, I like to listen to stuff while I'm washing dishes. It makes it more enjoyable. And so if they could do some learning while they're doing other things, or if that's also just their preferred learning style, then why would we not offer that to them? So those were like some of the initial like first thoughts when you launched Hello Audio. Why I was like, yes, sign us up.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I think about when we first met, like I think you're one of the first people that ever, I think I did a beta thing with you and I was like, I'm going to launch this new thing because it was at Todd Herman's event. But what I have always remembered about you is that you really cared about your product and people getting through that content. And back in like 2016, 2017, that was not a thing as much as it is now. And so I love that that has always been that has always been a thread, I think. And so here comes like, yeah, I mean, that was born out of me wanting that too for people. And so I love that you just like totally got it, values aligned, it aligns with like where your ideal client is, which we hear a lot of. As Nora always says, everyone's busy. No one's not busy. But when you're dealing with CEOs who are trying to take off, for a length of time in their business and they haven't ever, that is a person that has too much
Yeah.
on their plate. And we know that for a fact. And they want to take a course and finish it. Right. So I love how that lined up for you. I'm curious why there isn't like maybe some fancy strategy or anything. Could you talk about what how you do use it? Is it strictly for content? Is it in every program? Do you use it in any other way like with coaching calls or any other kind of support? So yeah, just like the structure of how it is in your courses would be cool to talk about.
So it's all of the content, right? So all of the content for our previous course and now also our certification from the trainings and then also the any additional support Q&A call or thing like that, right? Like any way that we're delivering support, they're also going to get that in the audio format. So I think that part of the challenge of courses sometimes is like everyone has a different platform, everyone's logging into different things. But like once they know where the private podcast feed is, it becomes really easy for them to just go back to it and access it and watch the next or listen to the next thing versus this like friction of, oh, like where is my login or like what was that URL again? So it makes everything kind of so much easier once they've got that login or once they've, accessed the private podcast feed once. Now they know where to find it, where they listen to their audio and they can consume that. But it's all of the content all the course content first, and then they'll start seeing a separate feed with the support like Q&As or coaching calls, things like that. Does that make sense? Awesome.
I actually think you're one of the first folks that we've talked to that are using it inside a certification program, which I think is awesome because with certification programs, I mean, we know if there's obviously people are paying usually more than they would pay for a course, but the stakes are a little bit higher. And it's important to allow people to make it as easy as possible to consume the information, especially when I think there's a little bit, if people have never created a certification program, there might be a misconception. It's not about monitoring people's going through the content. Like we're not checking off that they watch videos. We're assessing their knowledge, their know-how, their skills, their ability to apply the information and that kind of stuff. So I think it's great that, you're able to use this format and make it even easier for people to consume the information and then ultimately hopefully pass and earn that certification program. So I'm wondering in the certification program specifically, I think before we hit record, you were kind of talking about your completion rates and the engagement rates there. But would you mind talking a little bit about that? And I guess if audio is, do you think helping the folks go through that certification?
Yeah. So the completion rates right now, and it's interesting what you're saying of like, I never even thought to check off if they were completing a video because that's not how we're gauging proficiency in our
Exactly.
program, right? Like, I don't care if you watch the video. I
Right.
care that you know how to coach someone using these tools. And so our testing of their proficiency throughout the process, that is irregardless of how they consume the content, right? Like it's irrelevant to me. But we have those things in place so that I know, okay, you're able to coach someone, you're confident, you know the material. So we have certain quizzes or like key concepts quizzes, but then mostly we have like where we're assessing their coaching, right? We're assessing them in a coaching form. And so having the audio so that they don't need to watch the video just makes it again more accessible for them, both from a efficiency standpoint, but also from like a learning standpoint and different learning styles, but also just inclusivity of making sure that we have all these options so that people can learn in the best way for them. I know for me, sometimes if someone asks me a question, I have to really think about it and process it versus if I read the question, I can process it more easily, right? So even just understanding that about myself and that I prefer podcasts, but I have to be like doing something while I listen to them. Otherwise, I might get distracted and then I got to rewind. Same thing with like audiobooks, you know? So I think it's just like giving them the options, different strokes for different folks, but also different ways to consume it throughout different parts of their day. Sure, if they had the time to sit down and watch the video, maybe that is preferred when they're like watching and able to focus. But when they're on a walk, it's just really inconvenient to do that. And maybe the podcast is actually helping them deepen that learning or think about it in a different way. So we've absolutely had clients complete the certification without watching the videos, but just listening to the audio version. And they really appreciate that because that's what they prefer. It's going to reduce the friction for them to complete, which is my goal. I don't want them to like have to power through a program that is painful for them or requires them to do things that are inconvenient to them, right? And so is wow, they can get the same level of proficiency by just listening. And actually for some of them maybe more than if they were just watching the video. So I think it's just a important thing that we're like that everyone's offering that. I really don't see a downside to offering that. I don't know why people wouldn't offer that for different people, as well as it tends to be a selling point in our marketing for people. Because when we say, oh, we have a private podcast feed of the course material, so you can listen and go through the material at your convenience, wherever you are, whenever you are, like they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like a private podcast feed, I'm in. I'm like, okay, great. Like, of course we would do that for you. Right. So, but I guess that's not the norm everywhere. I know that you're obviously working to make that the norm, but it is the norm for us, you know, and that's what people can expect anytime they go through one of our programs is that they're going to have the audio version. And so when we launched the certification, it felt, of course we're gonna include the audio because there's no need for them to watch all these videos. If there is something visually that they need to see, they can go back and do that in the module, and they're adults. They know to, oh, I that's something visual I would like to look at. Let me make a note for myself. Let me go back. Maybe it's in the show notes of that episode. Like it's easy for them to find what they're looking for if there is something very visual, but it's so rare that we can't just explain something. So
I love that. Yeah. And I honestly think that it's a misconception of folks who have taken probably subpar certifications. Like the way you've designed your certification program speaks to the quality, the intention, and how purposeful that it was. It's not just about checking the box. This is about making sure that you understand and can apply the information and making it easier. And we agree. I think it should be the norm. Lindsay, Derek, we all think it should be the norm for every course out there. And I think for the folks that do have audio as a channel to be able to consume it, if you're making it easier, people will consume it more, right? It's not rocket
yeah.
science. It's just reducing the friction, like you said. So I love the fact that you're offering this and to you, it's like a no brainer, which we love. You're our people for sure.
Cool. So I know you alluded to comments from clients and stuff like that. I don't know if you have any anecdotal stories or anything that you can point to that's like, we got this email that somebody, different ways that this has supported people in completing your guys' programs.
Yeah, I think maybe it's not different than what I've shared before. Like when we're on webinars, like we've had people who they make a yes decision when we're selling our offer because they see, oh, like they got an audio too. Yes, I'm going to be able to consume this, right? Because I'm hitting that objection of like, oh, I'm not going to have time to watch these videos or like, and so it removes a lot of their hesitations or the objections that they might have for themselves getting through the program, especially when, again, I'm working with very busy people. And to Nora's point, like everyone's busy. And so this should be an option for everyone. But that's definitely something that we see like in action, people being like, oh, okay, that's really helpful. That's really good. The other thing is we do work with a lot of clients who like they don't have a lot of learning time necessarily built into their day. They have a lot of interruptions happening throughout their day. And so sometimes the only time they can consume the course material is when they're, for example, like on a walk or in the car, and those are not times that are conducive to a video. And so it has helped our students get through the program and get the results that they want, which is what our end goal is. Like I said, I don't care how you consume the content. The goal is that you're making meaningful change in your life. And so if you're so busy that you don't have time to watch the video, how else can I support you? And it's like, okay, let's add the podcast feed. And so we know people use that. We know that they appreciate it, even if they don't use it for every single module, like knowing that it's there for when they can get through some stuff. We've had numerous clients every single time we have a new cohort. They're like, I'm listening to this while I'm walking my dog, or I'm listening. I'm like, great. I love that. I'm in your ears. And audio, I'm sure you know this, is like one of the it's the most intimate format, which, you would think video because they can see your face, but actually it's not. It's audio where they build trust and likability and all of that fastest is through audio, through me. Like literally people put their AirPods in, they put me right in their ears. And it's like the most intimate way to connect with someone and build that know, like, and trust. I think it was like the radio. I forget who did that study, but it was like a really interesting study. I'm sure you guys know, but that audio is actually the better trust building platform. So they build that. They build a relationship with me on their walks. And I think that also it's an interesting thing that because over the years I've had people who are like, I always look forward to listening while I'm on my walks, or I feel like you do, dishes with me every day, or like you're helping me fold my laundry. It actually becomes this thing that we do together. Like we're doing household things together instead of, or like life things together. And I'm with them versus they're sitting at the computer watching my video. It's actually much more intimate. Like I said, that we're doing life together, in this silly little way, but they make those comments. They're like, every time I'm on a walk with my dog, you're with me. So I'm like, oh, that's so nice.
I
I
love
love
that.
that we have those moments together,
It feels very on brand because a lot of what you teach and a lot of the systems and methodologies that you're teaching folks to install in their business or, it impacts so much of their lives and gives
Yeah.
them more balance, right? And I
Yeah.
think that feels very on brand in terms of being efficient, but also enjoying those moments where I'm guessing a lot of folks that come to you and they are underwater and they're
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
busy and they finally get a chance to breathe and get a little bit of space. And I think that probably has such an impact on your clients as well. So I love that.
Totally.
Yeah, it's like you give them permission to make that space that they don't have yet. So it's so interesting because you literally teach how to make space in a business. And people that are coming to you have too many courses. They've gone through too many things. They've failed themselves. Quote, I'm putting air quotes because it's not really what it is, but they feel that. They feel the heaviness of not finishing. This is another course I bought on productivity. You know what I mean? And so then it's like, oh, I listened to oh, I could do this, right? And so that trigger goes off and you give them permission to make it, not look like the other ways that they've potentially consumed that content. And then I think that overflows, that gives them the one up to then start to be like, because that's what you teach is, okay, I'm going to teach you how to break this down and to like get things off your plate. So you do have learning time, right? So you can have space. But it's with anything, with a diet, with new exercise, like anything you're trying to make a commitment towards in your life, there's a sacrifice that has to be made somewhere. And so what you're saying is like, hey, I know you're really busy and you probably feel like nothing can be sacrificed. I'm going to teach you that's not true. However, like in the space between while you try to get to that point, you got to learn how to do that, right? And so you're like literally living out, like Nora says, it's on brand, but it's if you didn't offer that would be crazy. Like it would be like, why wouldn't you expect that group of people that you're serving would need that extra help and space? And so I love that. That's why I think this conversation is very meta because not everyone is going to teach productivity who like uses private podcasts, but a lot of people have those problems in the course space and improvement and whatever, depending on whatever you teach or sell with your products, there is that I'm busy and like I don't have time to do this. Why would I finish your course? And then seeing that podcast feed being offered. But there's also the lift it is for your team. So you guys operate relatively leanly and I'm sure you could make it really fancy. I think this is another thing we talked about. You're not doing anything super fancy with Hello Audio, which is totally cool. And that's what I love about it is because it has such a nice ROI. Your team probably, it's not a very big lift. You kind of do it once, set it and forget it. You probably someone has to manage the Q&A calls or whatever. But like, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that piece too, like what it's like for you guys to even offer it.
Yeah, it's super easy because we just, like I said, like we just put the course material in there and then the Q&A calls. I do not know how to log into Hello Audio. I'll be honest with you because I don't do that. Like the team does it. They have access to what they need, but it's super simple for them to do and to manage. And like you said, they set up the course stuff up once and then they don't have to think about it again. And then any additional calls or trainings, and those are easy for them to add. We haven't done anything super fancy with it. We've thought like recently, we're like, oh, we should do an audio like training for that. And because we have the tool, it's going to be that much easier if we want to like, hey, maybe let's test out as like a marketing event. Let's do like just an audio format. Or actually recently we did a webinar and one of our mutual friends, Erin Kelly, was giving feedback that she never watches webinars. She's if something is like a video, I'm not watching it. And I was like, oh, that's of course, we do this in our courses, but why would we not do this with our marketing pieces too, like a webinar? And so we took the webinar and we turned it into like an audio that on Hello Audio that people could do like a private podcast feed of that marketing event that we did. And so that's something fairly new that for some reason it took us years to even think about doing, but it's just we're so trained and accustomed to do a webinar, like, and then, but that's not how it gives people a false impression of actually what their experience is going to be in the program because we are really accessible and we do have audio only formats. And so we, are going to start doing that with our marketing pieces as well and putting those into Hello Audio so that people can have a private podcast feed of, the enrollment events or marketing any trainings that we're doing that are free for our community. And I'm sure it's going to be like a great, easy warm up piece. We get them to log in once and then now they have the feed, and then we can keep adding trainings and clips and things there that they could continue to binge and warm them up. And then I only had to get them to open the thing once to sign up for the link. And now they're continuing to get more support from us, more access, more free stuff and training that will help them move them along that journey. And so we were like, duh. But yeah, we've been using it very simply, very in a streamlined way. But it's been really effective, And so I don't want to make myself wrong for like not figuring out all the fancy stuff. It's like, you don't have to do all the fancy stuff that maybe other people are doing. Maybe that's something like down the road that you're like, oh, now that we've got it like really well set up in just our programs or our courses, like what other fun things could we do with it, right? Or where else are we potentially leaving people out or being inaccessible when we really want to do better, So it's like, I always say, like, start simple, get fancy later. And I feel like that's what we've done is we're just really simple, but it really works. I'm excited to see how it might work with our marketing. Obviously it would. I don't know why we wouldn't have thought that sooner.
It's really powerful, though. I mean, starting simple, I mean, obviously super effective. You've seen that with course engagement. You've seen that with course completion. You've seen that with customer feedback and how much they love it and how much they're listening to it. And I'm guessing you're probably not even looking necessarily at the staff, like the analytics on the back end, because you're just you're seeing the results from the
Yeah.
engagement, from the completion, from feedback. Now that might change with marketing,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that like looking to see what's there. Now you can look at, could we do this as a lead magnet, doing the audio webinar or looking at, I love that I've heard maybe we're kind of thinking an audio first kind of and a thing. So I don't necessarily need to worry about video production or slides, maybe if I'm just testing a concept or, wanting to put something out there pretty quick.
You know what I could see is like a case study podcast. I bet hearing voices of people who've made these changes in their lives, that's something that's super bingeable and makes somebody be like, oh, I could be like that. Oh, I find myself in this business owner. That's exactly what was happening to me. And then again, maybe the first lead magnet that they've completed, they binge everything and they're like, cool. And I know it's in the course. So the fact that it like mirrors, like you just said, I think that was really important where you're like, wait, we offer the private podcast feed inside. Why aren't we like using that as an attraction method when we know a lot of our people really like it? And so I think that I have a feeling
Yeah.
it's going to do well. I'm not going to lie, but I think a case study episode or interviewing team members of the people who've made this change could be really cool, right? Not even the business owner that took the thing, but like how it's impacted their team. I don't know. I think there could be some cool stuff there that you guys could play with. But I love the webinar too. I think we're going to have Lizzie Goddard on talking about this, just having it under the replay and like how many people would much rather upload that into their thing on a landing page replay for webinars. We've heard really positive results from that too. That not even the completion rate, but the like the show up rate, if you want to call it that, because it's downloaded. Maybe they showed up because it downloaded. We don't know. It's not a listen for sure, but like that idea that they took that step,
Right.
I think is huge. So I'm
I
glad you
do
guys are
too.
doing that. That'll be cool. This is the you have to come back episode. See, we didn't even know we were going to get there.
Where life is perfect. So then I'll come back for that. But I just wanted to address something Nora said because she mentioned like I probably don't even know like how many people are going through necessarily like the course feed, which is 100% true. And even if it was one person,
Mm,
it's worth it. Like I wouldn't even care if only one person listened to the certification via the audio feed. That was worth us putting it in there, right? And I'm sure the stats are more, but to me, it doesn't matter because that's just the type of company we want to be. Like, we want to make sure that it's accessible for everyone and that it's easy for everyone and it's efficient for everyone. And our goal is to get everyone through the process to get the result that they want to get, right? And being certified or either getting a result in the program. And so even if it was just one person, I would still be like, yeah, that was absolutely worth it, right? Like that's one person that wouldn't have gone through it before. And so I think sometimes in the online world, like the vanity metrics of like the numbers, you see numbers, but like these are people, right? Like that's a person who got what they needed because we provided a different format for them. So yeah, like I don't know the numbers now. I'm like, I don't know. Do I care? I don't care about those so much as I maybe, yeah, like you said, like
The
maybe the
marketing.
marketing. But even if one person, like, because it's so easy for us to do, like it's such a low lift to add the Hello Audio to what we like. I already did the webinar. Like it's just pulling, like my team just pulls the audio and puts it in there. It's so low lift that even if it just reached one more person, then that's honestly still worth it too, even from a marketing perspective, you know? So
It
that's
speaks
my
volumes to how much you care about your people, which we love. If I could give this a bazillion hearts, I would, just because it really does. It speaks volumes because the ROI is there with one person.
yeah.
Because it is such a low lift. I know we say that all the time, but it's helpful when other people are actually using the software. We say it because we know the software, but it is a lower lift and it can give you the greatest ROI, even if it is that one person, because it is a human being that we're making, reducing the friction. And if it was you on the other end, and I'm sure you've probably started, because I know we have, even as owners of the company, is we're looking for accessible when we buy courses or when we invest in programs. Do you have a private podcast? It can be a little awkward when, when it's they're using us,
Like,
but it
I
is
happen to be
probably
the
something you
CEO.
start to look for your own investment. If wait, I
A
could
little
give you, yeah,
awkward.
I know someone. I could connect you.
That's so funny. Yeah, I actually just joined like a new mentorship program or whatever recently, and I didn't ask up front, but I was pleasantly surprised to find a podcast feed. I don't know if it was Hello Audio or not, but I was like, oh, thank God, because a lot of the times when I'm trying to listen and consume my content, I am on a walk with my daughter, like she's in the stroller, and I just can walk and listen, and I don't always want to spend like my work time at a computer. Like I already spend enough time at my computer, you know? So I was like pleasantly surprised that someone else had that. So just knowing that like your clients are probably looking for that too. So
Yeah. Our dream is being realized, Nora.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
Cool. Do you want to take us home with our final question? No,
Yes.
just kidding.
Okay. So we asked this question of all of our guests that come on the show. And it said, if there was a private podcast with your life's thoughts or life's ramblings, what would it be called?
oh man, I'm so terrible at things like that. Like ramblings from a former safari guide. I don't know. Like
That's
that's
intriguing.
cute. Intrigue. I went for intrigue for you, Nora.
I'm
Good
big
hook.
at that.
I like
Now I
it.
feel like we need to have a whole episode on that because I mean, come
That's my
on, that's
marketing hook. Yeah.
awesome.
I was a former safari guide. I got trained in South Africa in 2018. I mean, 2008. My background is in wildlife ecology and management. So,
Okay, this gets more and more fascinating as we go. Okay. I'm imagining the podcast cover art for this. I could get on
Same.
board with this. This is
I do a lot of like thematic photo shoots. Why do I not have a safari guide photo shoot? I'm definitely going to create one. Thank you for that inspiration. You know, maybe
As
that
you
is
do.
the next podcast I need to start. Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone look out for it.
I'll give you credit if I start it. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's been so fun. I knew this would be a fun convo. Lots of good insights in there that I'm just like, yep, that is exactly why we created this product. That's what I love about doing these interviews when people like reflect back the things that we like dreamed up. Thank you so much for believing in us, for taking that chance back in the day, and for continuing to move forward. Always free to hit us up for marketing ideas for private podcasts. We got them. And yeah, we'll have you back on to hear how they do.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Adrienne. And there you have it, audio heads. Another episode of Launch a Private Podcast is in the books. I hope you're leaving today feeling even more ready to amplify your voice and connect with your audience in meaningful ways. The adventure continues in our next episode with even more insights, strategies, and inspiration to help you along your own private podcasting journey. Of course, make sure to check out helloaudio.fm to start your own private podcast. And remember, you've got amazing content that needs to be heard. So let's turn the volume up. Until next time.